Once, in a small rural town surrounded by towering mountains, lived a man named Caleb. He was known as the Quiet One. He spoke little, worked hard on his small farm, and rarely went beyond the borders of his land. Years passed, and while others in the village sought opportunities elsewhere, Caleb stayed behind, tending his fields that barely yielded enough to survive. Every morning, Caleb would stare at the great mountain that loomed behind his land. Its shadow covered his crops for most of the day, blocking the sunlight and stunting their growth. This mountain, he thought bitterly, is the reason I am poor, why nothing grows, why I will never have more. One evening, after yet another meager harvest, Caleb sat by his fire, staring at the mountain. If only this mountain weren't here, he whispered to himself, my life would be different. The next morning, Caleb made a decision. He picked up a small shovel, walked to the foot of the mountain, and began digging. His neighbors laughed. Caleb, they said, what are you doing? I'm moving the mountain, he replied simply. They shook their heads. You'll never move a mountain with a shovel. But Caleb kept digging, day after day, week after week. He carried small buckets of earth away from the mountain. Some days he moved a few rocks, other days only a handful of dirt. It was slow, back-breaking work, and yet he continued. After months, people stopped laughing. Instead, they pitied him. He's lost his mind, they whispered, all alone, wasting his life on a hopeless task. One day, a traveler came through the village. He was an old man, walking with a wooden staff, but his eyes were bright with wisdom. He watched Caleb working at the mountain's edge and asked, why do you do this? Caleb, wiping sweat from his brow, replied, this mountain blocks the sun from my land. If I remove it, I can grow more. I can live better. The old man nodded. And what if you never finish? Caleb smiled faintly. Then my children, or my children's children, will finish it, but I will not stand here and do nothing. The old man placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. Then let me help, he said. Word spread about the old man's help. Then, one by one, other travelers joined. Some offered their hands, others brought tools. Soon, a few villagers who once mocked Caleb came quietly, picked up shovels, and dug alongside him. Years passed. The hole became a path. The path became a road. Slowly, the mountain's shadow retreated, and sunlight touched Caleb's fields. Crops began to grow taller, greener, richer. Caleb built irrigation channels. He planted orchards. His small farm became a thriving garden. What was once barren was now abundant. One spring, a merchant traveling through the village saw Caleb's flourishing land. How did this happen? He asked a villager. And they told him the story of the man who carried the mountain, one handful at a time. The merchant was so impressed that he offered Caleb a deal to sell his produce in faraway cities. Soon, Caleb's fruits and vegetables became known throughout the region. Traders came. New families moved to the village. What was once a sleepy town became a place full of life and opportunity. Years later, the old traveler returned. He found Caleb standing on his land, watching children run between rows of fruit trees. You've done it, the old man said. Caleb looked at the children laughing, then at the distant line where the mountain had once cast its darkest shadow. No, Caleb replied quietly, we did it. The old man smiled and said, tell me, Caleb, what is heavier, the weight of the mountain, or the burden of believing it can never be moved? Caleb thought for a moment. The belief, he said. The old man nodded. And which is greater, the work of one man, or the vision that inspires many to act? Caleb smiled. The vision. We all have a mountain in our lives. It might be fear, doubt, failure, or circumstances we believe we cannot change. And often, we stand in the shadow of that mountain, convinced it defines the limits of who we are and what we can become. But here's the truth. The mountain is only immovable until we take the first step. Caleb didn't have power or influence. He had a shovel, determination, and a willingness to start. He didn't wait for the perfect time. He didn't wait for approval. He didn't even wait for help. He moved one handful of earth at a time, and others followed. Your dreams, your potential, your future, they're not limited by what's in front of you, but by what you believe is possible. Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't the work, it's believing that change is possible. And once you do, the world begins to move with you.